Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into something really important in AWS API Gateway. We're going to focus on a piece of the puzzle that can seriously make or break your application's ability to keep up with the times. It's service endpoints. So, let me just kick things off with a question. Is your API really ready for the internet as it is today and as it's going to be tomorrow? It sounds simple, but it's a huge deal because as the internet changes, our apps have to change with it. And that's exactly what we're going to get into. So let's think about your API's endpoint like this. It's the digital front door. It's the one and only address that all requests are going to show up at. And, just like with a real front door, you've got to make sure it's open and accessible to everyone you actually want to let inside. So what even is an API gateway endpoint in technical terms? Well, it's basically the public URL for your API. It's the bouncer at the club, right? It's the very first point of contact that every single incoming request has to go through before it gets routed to the right place inside your AWS setup. When you're building this digital front door in AWS, you're pretty much faced with two main options. You can stick with the traditional IPv4 endpoint, or you can choose the more modern dual-stack endpoint. Let's dig into what that actually means for you. And this really gets us to the heart of the matter. How do you choose between IPv4 and dual stack? This isn't just a small technical detail. This decision is going to have a major impact on who can actually use your API, both right now and down the road. All right, take a look at this. The difference is actually incredibly simple, but it's fundamental. The IPv4 endpoint, you can think of it as the legacy, old-school option. It only understands traffic coming from IPv4 addresses. But the dual-stack endpoint, it's bilingual. It speaks both languages fluently, handling requests from both IPv4 and the newer IPv6 addresses without breaking a sweat. So how do you tell them apart? It's all in the name. Look closely at these URLs. The difference is super subtle, but it's absolutely critical. The old IPv4 endpoint ends in .amazonweb.com. The modern dual-stack one, it uses the newer .api.aws domain. That tiny little change is your key to unlocking IPv6 compatibility.
Now, here's the kicker, and this is really important. If you don't do anything, if you just go and create an API gateway and don't specify an endpoint type, AWS is going to default you to the IPv4 endpoint. Now, that's a safe default, sure, but it means you are not future-proofed right out of the box. You have to actively choose to support IPv6.
Okay, enough theory. Let's get practical. How do you actually tell AWS which endpoint you want to use? Let's take a look at how it works on the command line. So to use the modern dual-stack endpoint, you're going to use this -endpoint URL flag in your AWS CLI command. And notice the URL we're passing in. It's that new one we just saw, ending in api.aws. That one little flag is you telling AWS, hey, I'm ready. Bring on both the IPv4 and the IPv6 traffic. And just for comparison, here's how you'd explicitly ask for the old-school IPv4 endpoint. The command is exactly the same except for that URL. Here you see it's using the classic Amazon.com address. It's such a simple switch, but the impact is massive. Now, you might be thinking, great, I'll just flip the switch to dual stack and call it a day. But hold on. This is the exact spot where so many people hit a really frustrating wall. We're about to uncover what I call the critical IPv6 gotcha. So just picture this scene for a second. You've done everything right. You updated your API, you switched to a dual-stack endpoint to support all your users, and then the support tickets start pouring in. Some of your users are just locked out. They can't get in anymore. What in the world is going on? Well, the culprit is almost always hiding where you least expect it, in your security rules, specifically an old, outdated IAM policy. See, if you have any policies that filter access based on a user's IP address, they were probably written way back when only IPv4 was a thing, and now they are silently, automatically blocking all your new IPv6 traffic. And this is what that looks like in the real world. This little condition block in an IAM policy is basically saying, hey, I will only allow requests that come from an IP address inside this very specific IPv4 range. An IPv6 address is never ever going to match that rule. So, access denied. This is the lock on the door. So how do we fix this? Well, thankfully, the solution is actually pretty straightforward. All you have to do is update that AWS source IP condition so that it recognizes both the IPv4 ranges you want to allow and the new IPv6 ranges. And here it is. This is the after picture. Notice that one critical change? The value for AWS source IP isn't just a single string anymore. It's now an array, a list that contains both your original IPv4 range and your new IPv6 range. Just like that, your policy is finally as modern as your endpoint. Okay, so let's just quickly recap the big takeaways here. First, use dual-stack endpoints. It's the best way to future-proof your API for both IPv4 and IPv6. Second, always remember that if you do nothing, you get IPv4 by default. And third, and this is the most critical one, when you make that switch to dual-stack, you have to go check and update your IAM policies to include IPv6 ranges. If you don't, you're going to end up locking people out.
And that's pretty much it. Future-proofing your API gateway is a fantastic first step. But it kind of leaves you with a bigger question, right? What other parts of your cloud security, from firewall rules to database access, were built with an old IPv4 only mindset and might be due for a modern checkup? Something to think about. Thanks for watching.